Great. Oh. Hey, welcome everyone. Thanks for coming out for another Rust and WebAssembly Working Group meeting. So the first item on the agenda is RFC triage, and there are not any new RFCs, so let's move along. Second is our 6-week sprint planning stuff. I don't think we have too much to say here, but there is a link to unclaimed issues that we have kind of identified as a priority for the next however many weeks. So if there's anything that anyone's interested in picking up, here's a nice list of things that would result in a nice impact. And on to status updates for our 2019 roadmap items. I don't believe there's any updates really with Glue. We have one PR that we need to merge before we do our kind of initial release. And I believe that this is currently assigned to Ryan Levick, but he is basically having less time right now. So I will probably pick it up, or maybe someone else if anyone is really excited. Yeah. Do you want to talk about the multi-threaded futures executor stuff, Ilya?
Yes, I can share the progress. The pull request is still VIP, but it's moving forward.
Cool.
So it's working, but maybe still needs some style or something.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I am not really as familiar with that, but hopefully Alex is giving you all of the support that you need.
Oh, it's going great. He does awesome code reviews, very descriptive.
Nice. All right. Regarding debugging, there was a session at the recent WebAssembly face-to-face meeting about debugging. And it was very much like not even straw proposal kind of level, like just like suggestions for directions. And so my hope is that the subcharter that was created for debugging WASM is going to start picking up meetings again soon. And I don't know, does anyone have the links to all of the slides and stuff that were talked about at the face-to-face meeting?
I can probably find them.
Yeah, I'd appreciate it if someone could throw a link to the debugging notes and slides right here.
I can ask Derek, who is the chair of the debugging subgroup, about any potential future meetings.
Nice. Yeah, actually, I was meaning to email him, so if you could maybe share his email with me, that would also be very nice.
Sure thing.
Thanks. All right. Toolchain and workflow polish. Let's see. On the WASM bindgen side, Alex has been doing a series of like refactorings to make WASM bindgen internally represent all the signatures of functions and everything like that with WebIDL bindings or Snowman bindings or whatever they end up getting called. And he's been doing like basically rewritten WASM bindgen maybe 2 or 3 times now in the last 3 weeks. And separately from that, I've been working on a crate just to kind of represent WebIDL bindings and parse them and emit them and everything, both the text and binary format. And yeah, the eventual goal here is to make WASM bindgen an ahead of time polyfill for WebIDL bindings. And this work is being tracked in, I'm going to grab the issue real quick. Yes. Here we go. And yeah, so the status update that I have there, other than Alex's refactorings, is that the WASM WebIDL bindings crate can now not just emit the binary structure, but also decode it. And yeah, I think next step is probably to do validation. And I don't think we have any updates as far as monitoring, profiling, and testing infrastructure goes, unless anyone saw something that I missed. All right. Sweet. So Aaron, hello.
Hello. Hey, so I got invited here by Ashley. I went to JSConf EU, and they were like, you should join. I was like, cool. So, and I see, like, I know like half the people in the chat, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, so I developed WASM. I don't know if that means anything, but so I've been doing a lot of just like general in my free time, like, hey, WebAssembly is cool. So that's why I'm here. I'm also working with the AssemblyScript team. So I don't know, I'm giving so much context. Anyways, one thing we're trying to do right now, or at least we're trying to do, I've been trying to pitching this, is kind of like making AssemblyScript like a major, or not major, but a more organized open source project. Like, I don't know, can I share my screen? I don't know if it's worth sharing my screen.
You should be able to.
All right, cool. I'll just do application window. Yeah, I'll just do application window. Nah, I'll just do my entire screen. I always have like the hardest, like, which one should I choose? Boom. Is it working?
Yep.
All right, cool. Thank you. Also, nice to meet you, Nick. I've
Yeah.
watched your talk before. Yeah. But one thing I've been trying to do, and like talking with Daniel, the author of AssemblyScript, is kind of start getting things organized. So I asked them to create like a meta repo, almost in some sense, and we're trying to start like a core team and things like that. So that way we kind of have a place to be like, hey, this is like what we do, this is what our goals are, and like, you know, we have a team here. If you want to contact us, things like that. These are people you can probably talk to about it, so on and so forth. With that, I'd like to ask my first question. Is there a way that we could kind of work together? I mean, I feel like we have the similar goals and like things like that, like both the Rust and AssemblyScript people, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so AssemblyScript is trying to fill kind of a similar niche that we are doing in the sense of like really good interoperation with JavaScript and kind of being able to do small targeted modules, right?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, yeah, 90% of the way. That being said, I feel like Rust right now, personally, is more of like we'll like do a lot of the glue code for you. We'll do like a lot of the higher level abstractions and things like that. And we've been trying to focus more on like smaller, like I want to pass buffers and pointers back and forth, and that's really about it. More like, I guess, lower level type stuff, where just because our team is smaller, we're starting to do things like add a runtime for garbage collection and things like that. But yeah, if that makes sense. And we're also trying to fit in really well with like the TypeScript workflow. So like you can have one TS config for your entire project, and you can like kind of swap between the two without too much trouble. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So I guess what sorts of ways were you imagining working together? I guess like on what?
I personally, I don't know, but like I kind of had this thing in my head where it was like Rust versus Emscripten versus AssemblyScript, and then I realized no, we're all trying to just do WebAssembly stuff. So like maybe we could like I also built a thing called WASM by example. If I may share my screen one more time.
Yeah.
So boom, I still need to work on like getting it more known, but I just literally launched it like I think 2 days ago. And one thing is just a lot of like small introduction, like, hey, this is how you like go end to end, build a small hello world, and like here's some links to like the assembly script compiler and things like that, and how to figure that out, yada yada yada. And then it also has a language switcher up here, so you can choose like, oh, I want to do Rust instead. And then I have like a whole thing here about like how to do this in Rust. So yeah. So on the topic of that too, if someone would be so kind, would someone like look through this and make sure I can write Rust? Because this is actually the first time I've written Rust, so I'm kind of like, I feel bad about this. But Surma told me it was okay, so I was like, okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah,
Does anyone want to look through that? Can you throw the URL in the agenda so that we can?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Is there a GitHub repo, or like how would you like to receive feedback?
Yeah, definitely the GitHub repo probably be best. If I don't want to like push on like, hey, help me with my project, but you know what I mean. Yeah. I can definitely add the agenda once I log into Dropbox, and then boom. Yeah. But yeah, so maybe it's something I can come back in the next meeting, and maybe we could be like, yeah, these are some ideas we brainstormed. Maybe we can work together on X, or you know what I mean, things like that. But yeah, I've been. Go for it.
The sort of higher level bindings would be a really great fit for assembly script. Probably it's just a lack of resources that has led to assembly scripts being so low level, right? Because like, you can pass I-32s back and forth with like the minimal amount of effort, but something like assembly scripts, like, it would obviously be great if you could express richer types and pass those back and forth seamlessly. So maybe that's one way to collaborate.
Definitely. Yeah, we could definitely learn from y'all on like terms of like high level things. I know a lot of the people working on the actual compiler are just reserved about implementing a lot of the early specs when they know they're going to change. So that's kind of one of the major concerns. I got kind of pushed them like, hey, maybe we should like have garbage collection, and they totally wrote like a really lightweight runtime for it, but they're still very strong. Like, we cannot wait to remove garbage collection once it's actually in like the browser. So stuff like that. And like, yeah. So yeah, I guess that's kind of how I see it fitting, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Would the assembly script team be open to more contributions, from like our tooling team or something potentially in the future?
Yeah, I can definitely ask, and I would be surprised if they said no. So yeah, we're just it's an open source project, so I haven't seen them say no to anyone before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, cool. But yeah, I know someone else has to talk about something, and I could like stop talking. But yeah, it's essentially I just wanted to say hi and be like, this stuff I'm doing. Let me know if I can help y'all and if we can work together. Yeah.
Before we move on to the next topic, what does the toolchain for assembly script look like?
I know it's pretty much Daniel, like decode.io. They wrote a compiler in C, and then that gives you binarian, and then binarian down to WASM modules.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking like there's a story for linking C and C++ with Rust, because you can use Clang, and as long as you're on a compatible LLVM, everything should work. It's a little finicky to set up, but yeah, it's with like completely different tool chains. I think linking is a bunch more work. But the other alternative is kind of these shared nothing modules that just communicate, where you instantiate an assembly script module, you instantiate a Rust module, and then you have them talk to each other via imports and exports. And for something like that, the WebIDL bindings is kind of the intended way that those APIs will be expressed. And so maybe assembly scripts could use the WebIDL bindings crate that we're working on in order to implement that, and then we'll also implement it, and then we'll be able to bridge the gap that way.
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea. One thing Daniel was telling me like yesterday was like, yeah, I wish like we could find some type of like downstream dependency that could do some of this work for us. That way we don't have to like write our own runtime to get new features. We could like ask, like pretty much have the compiler use something else to do it for us and then go from there. So it's definitely something I'll mention to them. Thank you.
Yeah.
Aaron, you should also talk to Wouter on our team.
Water?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
He wrote a like C++ header that implements a streaming interface for like streaming WebAssembly, very similar to like Binarian's C interface for streaming Binarian IR. Except it also adds in all of the extra stuff that you need to get a proper WASM object file automatically. So that could enable actual object files coming out of assembly script and linking statically with potentially Rust and C++ and stuff.
For sure. That sounds great. Awesome. Yeah. But yeah, that's my spiel. Thanks everyone for listening.
Good. Thanks. Thomas, you want to talk about threads and bulk memory?
Yes. Basically, I'm about to update the linker so that when you have a application with threads enabled, it will emit all the data segments into passive data segments, which are a feature of the bulk memory proposal. So right now, at least in Emscripten, what we do is when you create a multi-threaded module, because it doesn't use bulk memory, it has to take the data sections and move them into a separate file, and then add code to load, like initialize memory by reading that file. And this is to avoid a situation where the memory gets reinitialized in every thread that you spawn. Because just normal passive segments get initialized on instantiation, and each thread is doing its own instantiation of the WASM module. So this is like a pretty important feature to have, so I'd like to add it. It does mean that threads now has a dependency on bulk memory. So in particular, this breaks Firefox a little bit with threads. Right now they have a sort of a flag you can toggle in about config to turn on shared memory, which right now enables threads, but it doesn't turn on bulk memory. So that'll be insufficient. And I've already dropped an issue in the Firefox bug tracker, just letting them know about that. But I wanted to ask this group, first of all, how does the Rust toolchain do this right now, separate the active data segments out? And yeah, what's the ideal story for the Rust toolchain going forward to include bulk memory in this? Like, if I just make this change in LLVM, will everything just work, or will you break horribly, and we don't want that?
Well, so it's not going to just break our toolchain immediately because we, actively update LVM, right? So until we update LVM, we'll be fine. I wish Alex were here, but he's not available because he's the one who actually implemented this. But we essentially polyfill all this stuff in WASM bindgen. I guess it sounds similar to how Emscripten was pulling things out into a separate file. We don't put them in a separate file, but we make everything passive or not passive so that it's manually initialized. And then somehow in the start function, we determine whether or not we are the main thread. I don't really remember what the mechanism for doing that is. It might just be like an import or something. And then we branch on that. And the main thread is the one that initializes all of the data segments. And then everything else doesn't, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, like definitely we don't have a threading story without the non-passive data segments because there's not really, as you said, like you don't want to initialize them multiple times and overwrite and get data races, and yeah, it's doesn't make sense. So we'll probably need to modify our pass in WASM bindgen that implements this stuff, but I don't know. That seems fair game.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds like you'll get to delete a bunch of code because the linker is going to automatically insert a function that initializes all of the memory sort of at the right time. As long as you're calling double underscore WASM underscore call underscore CTORs at some point, because that's where it's going to get inserted. And since you're just using LLVM, I assume you're calling that somehow. But all right.
Well, so that's what calls like global constructors.
Yes, we're also going to have it initialize the memory.
Okay. Yeah. So right now we don't. Well, Rust doesn't have global constructors at all.
Okay.
So I've never seen that symbol in any WASM binaries we produce because nothing would reference it, right?
I see. Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. As long as the stuff is like documented somewhere or something,
yeah,
I think we'll be fine.
Okay. Sounds good. I'll definitely make sure it's documented. And would it be helpful for me to drop an issue on a repo somewhere just to keep track of this?
Yeah, that would be very helpful. If you could do the WASM bindgen repo, that would probably be the best place.
Sure thing. Cool. Will do. Thanks.
All right. That's the end of the agenda items that are there right now. Does anyone have any burning question that they would like to get off before we end the meeting?
I kind of have a question. My name is Avery. I'm working at Cloudflare with Ashley, and she has had me looking into. I'm very new to Rust and WebAssembly, but I've been looking into WASM bindgen, and she wants me to sort of look at, I guess, merging package JSONs when you have like NPM modules and also local JavaScript. But I'm a little lost as to how to actually like test my changes. Like if I made a change to WASM bindgen or WASM pack, like how do I asked in Discord, and you said that the story there isn't necessarily there, and that I should just add a test. But I guess I'm just feel a little out of my depth there. So if you have any like tips or pointers or anything that I can read.
Yeah. Is there an issue open already for this feature?
I don't know. She sent me 2 RFCs, but I don't know if there's actually an issue.
Okay.
I can
think
ask.
There is, but I would need to reread those RFCs to figure out exactly what our plan of attack was, because I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm not entirely clear yet. She's also out of the office, so.
Okay. Yeah. So in general, like from just a development experience, like you're going to have a lot better time writing test cases and then testing them in the suite than trying to run all the tools by hand, because generally WASM pack is the thing that makes like wrangling all these tools easy, and it doesn't support like using local builds right now. So it'll be easier if you stay within the test suite, because then all the wrangling is done for you.
Yeah.
So for WASM pack itself, all the tests use this kind of project builder, which allows you to kind of lay out different files, and there should be examples in the test directory of WASM pack, and I suspect that's where a bunch of this implementation is going to end up being.
Okay.
I think there is probably some implementation needed in WASM bindgen, and for that, I'm less clear on exactly where that code would go. But
yeah, I guess I'm just interested in like how was WASM bindgen developed like without like if it's just like I'm not used to just having like test cases for development purposes. Like I'm used to being able to like interact with tools, but like it's obviously a very like there's a big project. Obviously people work on it, but like what's the like how?
yeah, so it's mostly integration tests that are doing like, here's an interface in Rust, here's like a JavaScript implementation of that interface, and make sure they can talk to each other back and forth. And so that's where most of the existing tests are, is kind of like flexing all the different options that are essentially importing JavaScript functions and exporting Rust functions and structs and classes. And so there is less infrastructure there for testing like actual artifacts. It's more about like the tests test the behavior of the system and not so much like the contents of the emitted artifacts.
Got it.
Yeah, I don't know. So I guess like
this is
the
helpful.
answer to that would be the way that it usually works is you add some new binding feature and write a test that uses that. But this is a slightly different case, right, where we actually are caring about the contents of these artifacts a bit more.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm sure that this will be we will be in contact about this at some point. I need to find an issue. I think I will ask Ashley about that.
Yeah. And I can try and find it as well. In general, asking for help on Discord or filing an issue with a question is like, completely fine and probably the best way to get answers.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep, of course. All right. Anything else?
Actually, if you don't mind, can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
Or ask one more thing? Hi, Avery, by the way. I haven't seen you in a while. That's crazy that we're both here.
Hi, Aaron.
Anyways, hey. So the thing I wanted to ask is, in terms of tooling, what have you found very useful for the Rust community? Like, I know WasmPack does like a ton of the stuff for you in terms of like, oh, you have a Rust module, it does all the compilation, gives you a Webpack, node module, things like that. Have you found that super useful, in terms of like people being like, yeah, I want to build NPM modules, like, boom, or is it other tools that, I don't know.
Yeah. So in general, people who are already Rust developers or like consider themselves like mainly Rust developers or whatever, are less interested in the NPM package stuff. And the people who are interested in that are the people who are JavaScript developers who are learning some Rust or something and want to integrate with their existing JavaScript system. Or I guess also Rust developers who want their stuff to integrate with another system. But yeah, there's kind of like two demographics. There's kind of people who are interested in, working with existing JavaScript code bases and people who kind of want to boil the ocean and only write Rust. And in WasmPack, a part of it is about NPM packages, but not all of it. Actually, a lot of it is just like having a single tool to wrangle all the other tools. So I suspect AssemblyScript might suffer from this a little bit less because it's more targeted specifically at WASM. But like compared to native development with Rust, WASM development with Rust introduces a lot of extra tools that you have to do and kind of like just extra bits that you don't have to deal with on native. And those are largely different tools, like the WASM bindgen tool, WASM opt tool, WASM snip, WASM strip, all the Wabbit stuff, right? And like having one tool with one place to do configuration or option flags to manage all of those things is like a huge workflow boon. like even just typing WASM-pack build instead of cargo build -- target WASM32 unknown is like, it's great. I hate typing -- target WASM32 unknown.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's one of the big benefits of WASM-pack. And then the other is WASM bindgen is the other big tool that we have, and that's all about the integration with JavaScript and web APIs and stuff like that. And
okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So on the topic of WASM-pack, especially, is there any value in not using it? Like if, you know what I mean?
I don't
like, is there
think so personally.
Okay. Cool.
Some people like to just like do things their way. I don't know. I can imagine if you're integrating into like some large build system like Bazel or something like that, you probably aren't even using cargo. You're using Rusty directly, and like, you know, there are situations where it makes sense where you just want to be in control of everything, or you want someone else to be in control at like kind of like a low level in terms of the build system. But for the most part, I think just use WASM-pack. It's going to be a lot nicer, especially since the WASM bindgen has to be tied. The CLI that you use of WASM bindgen has to be the same CLI that you, or the same version of the library that you use to compile the WASM, or else they won't understand like the description of what the signatures look like. And so just having a tool that makes sure that those are always the same version is really nice.
Okay, cool. Yeah, personally, one thing I kind of felt with WASM-pack, I read a lot of JavaScript, so I was a little confused why it was generating so much JavaScript for me. So I was trying to use the Rusty compiler, and then I realized, oh wait, WASM-pack does cool stuff for me, and then I went back. So yeah, that's why I was asking if, yeah, 'cause I've been writing a bunch of Rust examples, and I want to make sure I'm not writing bad examples, so that's why I asked that. Yeah, also one last thing about AssemblyScript, we're still trying to organize the project. Don't let me be like the end all. Yeah, he's the assembly. You know what I mean? But it's still something we're trying out. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you. I appreciate all your help. It already has my head thinking of ideas and stuff. So, yeah.
One thing that might be useful for the AssemblyScript project in terms of like organization and team structure, would be looking at like how RFCs work in Rust. And in particular, I think having like a roadmap, we do it every year, but it could be a different cadence, is really nice for like providing direction for the community and contributions.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I really needed that. I'm sure you could tell. And yeah, yeah. Someone else actually mentioned we should maybe have RFCs, and I was like, I don't know what those are, but I looked into it a little bit. But now I'll look into it more because
I'll throw a link in the office hours section to the Rust WASM RFCs. Oh, that's not it. Oops. Oh. Okay. If that actually updated the link. It did. Okay. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, when I have more ideas, I'll be sure to come by again and then hopefully ask. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Anything else? Okay. Well, thanks for coming out, everyone, and see you next week or, whenever around the internet. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.